The first rule of the galaxy was not carved into stone, nor inked in treaties signed beneath chandeliers of starlight. It drifted instead in murmurs, half-jokes and half-warnings, whispered over trade counters and council floors. Don't attack the human children. No official charter recognized it, but every species with sense obeyed it. The reason was never explained in full, only in hints, in the wary glances of diplomats, when a human child laughed too loudly or asked too many curious questions. The Galactic Empire did not believe in whispered rules. Empires rarely did. They believed in fleets of black-hulled destroyers, in steel-booted troopers, in banners unfurled over conquered worlds. They believed that fear was law enough. And when their emperor decreed that humanity's swelling colonies had grown too bold, the empire's commanders nodded, certain that the human frontier could be trimmed like weeds. It began on a quiet world at the rim, a place with a name no cartographer cared to spell correctly. The humans there had built only modest shelters, dusty streets, a few trading posts. Yet in the heart of that colony stood something that every empire, no matter how mighty, should have hesitated to touch: a schoolhouse. The building was wooden, imported lumber bolted together by rough hands, but within it thrummed the energy of Earth's distant memory. Chalkboards lined with multiplication tables, maps of oceans most of these children had never seen, baseball posters curling at the edges. The lunchroom smelled faintly of peanut butter sandwiches and apples. Outside, a flagpole carried a faded Earth flag, its stars pale under a twin-sun sky. The children were mid-lesson when the stormtroopers arrived. Metal boots on soil, black visors glinting, rifles cradled in arms that had never known mercy. Their commander, a broad-shouldered reptilian hybrid encased in crimson armor, shoved open the door with the arrogance of one who expected silence to follow. Instead, 30 human children blinked at him. One boy raised his hand politely, as if asking permission to use the restroom. Another whispered, "Is it Halloween already?" The commander sneered. "By decree of the emperor, this facility is closed. Your primitive teachings are forbidden. You will be relocated for assimilation." A girl of 9 with braids frowned. "What's assimilation?" "It means," the commander said, his voice dripping disdain, "that you will forget your useless customs, your games, your songs. You will learn obedience." The boy with his hand up muttered, "Sounds boring." The class erupted in laughter, small shoulders shaking, the raw cruelty of the intruders evaporating for a heartbeat under the weight of children's mockery. Troopers smashed the chalkboards, stomped on the baseball poster, burned the lunch sacks. One grabbed a jar of peanut butter and sniffed, gagging as if it were poison. Another picked up a toy action figure from the teacher's desk, examined it with contempt, then snapped it in half. And then it happened. A soldier, irritated by the laughter, backhanded one of the smaller children. A 6-year-old boy tumbled to the floor, cheek swelling, his classmates frozen in horrified silence. For a moment, the world held its breath. Even the commander seemed to realize something invisible had cracked. The children were silent, but their eyes were not afraid. They were watchful, as if they knew something the soldiers did not. Somewhere far above, in orbit, a transmission was relayed. The event was recorded, carried along the trade networks, and within days it was whispered across stations, outposts, council chambers. The rule had been broken. On a different world, in the marble-floored chamber of the Interstellar Trade Authority, alien delegates muttered uneasily. A gelatinous envoy shifted colors from green to pale blue. "They struck a child," it said. "The humans will not forgive." "They are only humans," argued a feline-faced aristocrat. "Their anger burns hot, then fades. We have weathered worse." But a leathery old scholar, scales cracked with age, shook his head. "No, you don't understand. They are not like us. Every species defends its young. Yes, but humans become their young. They carry their pain as their own." The chamber quieted, though none would admit fear. Not yet. On the human diplomatic vessel Resolute, Colonel Jonathan Kepler stirred his coffee. He was a man in his late 40s, hair peppered at the temples, uniform pressed to crisp perfection. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man who could charm senators and soothe colonists. To the untrained eye, he was merely a polite officer sipping caffeine between meetings. A junior aide rushed in, tablet shaking in his hands. "Sir, transmission from Pelora Colony. You need to see this." Kepler set down his cup with deliberate care. The recording played. Children's laughter, then the strike, the boy collapsing. The Empire's commander sneering. Silence. The aide dared a glance at Kepler's face. The colonel's expression had not changed, still calm, almost gentle. But his eyes, those steady gray eyes, narrowed by a fraction. To those who knew him, that fraction was the difference between diplomacy and war. "Send copies to every council chamber," Kepler said softly. "Every neutral world, every trading guild. Make sure they all know." He tapped the rim of his coffee mug, thoughtful. "And prepare fleet movement schedules." Quietly. The aide swallowed. "Sir, are we declaring war?" Kepler smiled faintly, the kind of smile one gives a child asking if thunder means the sky is angry. War is such a noisy word. "No. We're simply correcting a mistake." Later that evening, Kepler stood at a council session with 3 alien delegates. The delegates spoke first, feigning sympathy, urging calm. One even suggested perhaps the child had provoked the soldier. Kepler chuckled politely, as though at a bad joke. He offered them each a small tin from Earth. Cookies. Chocolate chip. A little taste of home. The lizard-skinned delegate sniffed suspiciously. "You humans are strange. Always eating even in grief." "It's how we survive," Kepler said warmly. "We break bread. We share sugar. Helps us remember we're still alive." He leaned forward slightly, tone still gentle. "Funny thing about children, they grow up. And they don't forget who hurt them." The delegates shifted uneasily. None touched the cookies. Meanwhile, in taverns across the galaxy, the recording replayed. Drunken merchants watched the strike, the boy falling, and muttered that the Empire had gone too far. Smugglers laughed nervously, saying they'd rather ferry human whiskey than imperial gold now. A phrase began to echo. They touched the children. On Pelora Colony, the struck boy was carried home by older classmates. His face was bruised, but his eyes fierce. "They'll come," he told his teacher. "Grown-ups always come when you hurt the kids." And come they did. Small detachments of human operatives arrived quietly, not in roaring fleets, but in shadows. They patched wounds, rebuilt the schoolhouse, whispered comfort to the children. At night, they left calling cards where the troopers had slept. Drawings of teddy bears wielding spears, stick-figure children standing atop fallen giants. Empire patrols began vanishing in the forests. Not with noise, but with silence. Outposts left abandoned, equipment missing. Strange melodies broadcast over comms. One transmission captured only the sound of a lullaby, sung softly in English. In the Emperor's war chamber, his advisors argued. It was a minor incident, one insisted. A bruise. Nothing more. "Then why," hissed another, "does every mercenary we hire suddenly refuse contracts against humans? Why do smugglers whisper prayers before carrying human cargo? Why do even our own officers avoid duty stations near their colonies?" The Emperor snarled. "Superstition. Fear is for the weak. Humanity will bend." But humanity was not bending. Humanity was smiling. On the bridge of the Resolute, Kepler addressed his officers. "The Empire believes they have silenced us. Good. Let them." His fingers traced the rim of his cup again, absent-minded. "While they gloat, we move. We prepare. We remind the galaxy why rules exist." An officer asked carefully, "And what of retaliation, sir?" Kepler's eyes gleamed, though his tone remained light. "Retaliation is too crude. We'll give them a lesson instead. One they'll never forget." After all, he looked out at the stars, voice soft but carrying an iron edge. "They touched our children." The officers exchanged glances, a chill running down their spines despite the warmth of the bridge. They had seen Kepler in war before. They knew what was coming. Far away, the children of Pelora returned to their rebuilt classroom. Chalk scraped across the board once more, baseball posters rehung, lunchboxes unpacked. Yet every desk bore a new addition, a small badge, silver-etched with Earth's flag. The children wore them proudly, tiny soldiers without weapons, their innocence now sharpened into something far more dangerous: memory. The Empire had broken the rule, and in breaking it, they had awakened the part of humanity no empire should ever rouse. That night, Kepler sat alone in his quarters, a photograph on his desk, two children smiling, arms around his neck. His children long grown. He traced their faces with a fingertip, then folded the photo back into his pocket. When the encrypted comm link buzzed, he answered calmly. A voice crackled through. "Orders, sir?" Kepler lifted his coffee once more, inhaled the steam, and replied with a smile that chilled even through static. "Begin the quiet work. And tell them," he paused, savoring the words. "Tell them the rule was broken." The Empire's diplomats wore smugness the way predators wore teeth. They filed into the council chamber with the ease of conquerors, capes trailing, armor gleaming, and eyes filled with disdain for the upstart primitives across the table. They expected bluster, perhaps begging. What they found instead was Colonel Jonathan Kepler standing at ease, his uniform immaculate, his hands loosely folded, as though this entire audience were merely a polite coffee break. The Empire's lead envoy, a reptilian noble, with ivory horns etched in ceremonial paint, bared his teeth in what passed for a grin. "Colonel, the Emperor extends his regrets about the unfortunate misunderstanding on your colony world. Discipline has been applied. The trooper responsible was chastised." His tongue flickered between sharp words. "Surely that is sufficient." Kepler tilted his head, as though considering. His tone was warm, almost affable. "Chastised? That's quite the word. Curious translation." He tapped the data slate before him. "It says here the soldier received a week's leave and a commendation for bravery." The envoy blinked, then laughed dismissively. "Reports are exaggerated. You humans have a talent for melodrama." "Perhaps," Kepler said mildly, "but we also have a talent for record-keeping. And memories." His gray eyes lingered a beat too long, especially when it involves children. The chamber cooled. To break the silence, Kepler opened a small tin and slid it across the table. Inside were neatly arranged cookies, their aroma sweet against the sterile air. Chocolate chip, a little earth delicacy. Consider it a peace gesture. The reptilian sniffed, unimpressed. "Do you humans attempt diplomacy through sugar?" "Sometimes through sugar, sometimes through salt," Kepler said, smiling faintly. "Both preserve things. Memories. Wounds. Take your pick." The envoy did not eat. None of them did. When the session concluded, the Empire believed they had cornered humanity into patience. They returned to their cruisers, whispering of human softness, of a species too sentimental to strike. Yet beyond their vision, in corridors hidden by shadow, Kepler's officers were already moving with quiet precision. Reports filtered in from border sectors. Empire patrols gone missing. Supply convoys disrupted not with fire, but with silence. Stations where every lock had been opened, every weapon disabled, every system mapped. Yet not a soul had seen who did it. Only scraps of children's drawings left pinned to bulkheads. Stick figures grinning beside smoldering starships. A merchant captain told a story in a tavern of hearing a nursery rhyme broadcast across comms before his escort vanished. A lullaby soft and calm before static. The rumor spread. Humanity had ghosts in the dark. On the neutral world of Caliph Prime, counselors gathered in panic. An amphibian dignitary wrung her hands. If the Empire provokes full retaliation, the balance of trade will collapse. A feline aristocrat scoffed. They are still only humans, a species of farmers and dreamers. They can posture, yes, but they cannot endure an empire's wrath. The elder scholar with cracked scales hissed, "You mistake them. Farmers defend crops with sickles, dreamers carve steel into warships. They smile while sharpening the blade. Do you not see? The trap is already tightening." The council chamber fell into a hush, for in their hearts they suspected he was right. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Kepler convened his inner circle. Maps of star systems shimmered in holographic light. The Empire expects retaliation. They expect us to roar. We won't. Instead, we'll breathe down their necks without sound. He gestured at the glowing constellations. Disrupt their food lines. Intercept their comm traffic. Leak evidence of corruption to their vassals. Make their own people question them. One officer frowned. Sir, if they sense our hand. They won't, Kepler interrupted, voice even. They'll sense fear. That will be enough. Later that night, in the ship's galley, Kepler lingered alone with a steaming mug. A junior technician, barely 20, passed by and hesitated. Sir, may I ask something? Kepler glanced up, his expression softening. Of course. Why all this subtlety? Why not strike back hard? Make them bleed, so they never touch us again. Kepler considered the steam rising from his cup. Because bleeding them would be mercy. What we're doing is teaching. And lessons learned in whispers cut deeper than wounds carved in flesh. The technician nodded, uneasy but thoughtful, and drifted away. Across the galaxy, Empire commanders were unraveling. Reports of sabotage grew absurd. Entire armories disassembled overnight. Dreadnought engines dismantled bolt by bolt. Even ration crates replaced with jars of peanut butter and hand-scrawled notes. For the kids. One admiral raged at his subordinates. How do they infiltrate us so easily? No one answered. No one dared. The admiral slammed a fist against the console. They're farmers, poets, cooks, not assassins. Yet even as he roared, another report arrived. Another fleet gone silent. At the Empire's High Court, the Chancellor demanded proof of control. Show us their weakness, he ordered. Instead, his aides brought trembling rumors. Children wearing silver badges. Human operatives who laughed politely before dismantling entire garrisons. Soldiers who surrendered upon hearing the word nursery. The Emperor dismissed it as propaganda. Humans are fragile. They bleed, they break. Crush them, and they scatter. But an old general, scars etched across his snout, muttered beneath his breath, scatter, yes. Like embers across dry grass. Back aboard the Resolute, Kepler held a secure conference with an alien ally from the free worlds. The ally's voice shook. Colonel, do you realize what you're provoking? The Empire will unleash horrors. Kepler's smile was calm, almost tender. Then they'll reveal exactly where their horrors sleep. And once we know, he let the sentence hang, unfinished, heavy as lead. The ally whispered, you're baiting them. Correction, Kepler said gently. I'm teaching them not to break rules written in whispers. Teaching requires patience. In time, the Empire did what all arrogant powers do, overreached. They announced new relocation camps for human colonists, claiming it was for their protection. The broadcasts were filled with smiling officials assuring order, safety, peace. But sharp-eyed viewers noticed details, the barbed wire in the background, the shadows of guards, the children clutching dolls too tightly. Within days, the camps emptied. Not through rebellion, not through battle. Empty bunks, silent corridors, gates left swinging in the wind. The guards found only paper cranes folded from math homework sheets. On each crane, a single word. Remember. The galaxy gasped. The Empire fumed. And Kepler, sipping his coffee, allowed himself the smallest exhale of satisfaction. The trap was tightening. Still, he knew patience must be paired with precision. He gathered his senior staff once more. They think we are sentimental. That's our camouflage. We'll keep smiling, keep sharing cookies, keep humming lullabies. All while drawing the noose tighter. His gaze swept the room. But never forget, this began because they touched the children. That is the center. That is the weight. Everything else orbits around it. An admiral asked softly, and if they strike harder? Kepler's smile did not waver. Then they reveal more. And every revelation is another chain tightening. Outside, the stars glittered indifferent, but in the silent hum of the Resolute's engines, destiny gathered. On the Empire's capital world, the Chancellor stood on a balcony, gazing at the sprawl of towers. He tried to ignore the rumors, the whispers of vanishing fleets and child warriors. Yet when he closed his eyes, he swore he could hear faint singing drifting through the night, a lullaby in a language he did not understand. He shivered. The trap had been set, and though the Empire strutted with the pride of conquerors, its steps were already tangled. Back in his quarters, Kepler unfolded the photo of his children once more. He studied their young faces, their laughter frozen in time, and let the silence stretch. Then he spoke softly to the empty room, as though to the galaxy itself. "They think this is about war," he murmured. "But it's not. It's about parenting. And parents don't start fights." He closed the photo, slipped it into his pocket. "They end them." The calm light blinked. A coded report. Kepler scanned it, eyes narrowing slightly, then lifted his coffee in a small toast to no one. "The Emperor just announced mobilization," he said quietly. His reflection in the viewport seemed to smile back, a calm mirror with steel beneath. "Good. That means he's showing us where to strike." The first strike did not come with fanfare or thunder. It arrived quietly, in the hum of circuitry, in the subtle rewriting of code lines that no imperial technician noticed until it was too late. A fleet of war cruisers, 30 strong, drifting proudly at the edge of a contested sector, suddenly went dark. Engines silent, weapons frozen, crews hammering control panels in panic as life support flickered and alarm screamed. Somewhere deep inside their networks, a small executable loop repeated endlessly. Homework _incomplete .exe. No virus warnings, no firewalls triggered. Just a child's file name running the largest war fleet in the quadrant into paralysis. When the first distress calls sputtered through comm relays, they carried more than technical chaos. They carried human laughter. Not cruel laughter, but a soft chorus of children giggling, broadcast over imperial encrypted channels, as though the ghosts of the colony schoolhouse had hijacked the airwaves. The Empire called it sabotage. Humanity called it a lesson. Across council chambers, alien species traded nervous glances. The Free World Coalition convened an emergency session, their delegates buzzing with unease. "They cripple fleets with homework," muttered one insectoid senator, antennae trembling. "What kind of species weaponizes children's errors?" An amphibian dignitary croaked in reply, "Not errors. Memories. And memories sharper than blades." The Empire scoffed. Yet more fleets vanished in the following weeks. Not destroyed, vanished. Reports suggested human boarding parties moved like phantoms. Polite voices over comms requesting crews to please vacate the premises before entire dreadnoughts were stripped down, piece by piece, and tugged into hidden asteroid fields. Every capture carried the same signature. Teddy bears etched into hulls with plasma cutters, crude but chilling. On the Resolute, Colonel Kepler reviewed the growing list of disappearances with the same calm expression he used when reading morning news. His officers spoke in clipped voices, balancing awe with unease. "Sir, that's 5 capital ships this month. All intact. Not a single human casualty reported." "Good," Kepler said, sipping coffee. "Efficiency is elegance. Waste nothing. And remember, we are not at war." His gaze drifted across the table. "We are teaching." One young officer, his jaw clenched tight, asked, "And what if they don't learn, sir?" Kepler set down his mug and leaned back. His voice was soft, almost tender. "Then we remind them what happens when parents stop teaching and start protecting. The difference, Lieutenant, is subtle but fatal." Reports from the front grew stranger still. Imperial soldiers swore they saw children in battlefields where no children should be. A trooper fleeing in ambush insisted a little girl handed him a lollipop before the rest of his squad vanished. Another described chalk drawings appearing overnight on his barracks wall, stick figures of humans towering over broken helmets. The soldiers mocked one another for believing in child ghosts, but none laughed for long. One captured Imperial commander spat defiance at his human interrogators. "You are monsters. Smiling monsters." Kepler, presiding over the interrogation, gave a small smile. "Monsters? No, we're parents." He offered the prisoner a cookie from his tin. "There's a difference. Monsters lash out for hunger. Parents remember who hurt their kids." The commander refused the cookie. He did not sleep for 3 nights before breaking. In neutral taverns, rumors spread like wildfire. Merchants whispered about Baba Yaga units, mythical human operatives who could dismantle armies with polite handshakes and good manners. Smugglers joked nervously that candy had become contraband, because the Empire's soldiers now panicked at the sight of brightly wrapped sweets. The Empire, furious and humiliated, unleashed its spectacle. From the forges of their core worlds rose the Sunbreaker, a planet killer designed to vaporize entire atmospheres. Its unveiling was broadcast across half the galaxy, a demonstration of might meant to smother whispers of human vengeance. Crowds were forced to cheer as the Emperor declared, "No farmer, no poet, no grieving parent will stand against this. We will burn their colonies until the stars themselves weep." But when the activation sequence began, nothing happened. The great weapon hummed, then coughed, then sputtered. Panels flickered nonsense. Math quiz results. Grade D+. Technicians screamed, ripping open conduits only to find them filled with peanut shells and folded paper cranes. In the core reactor chamber, one word glowed across every diagnostic screen: nap time. Billions across the galaxy watched in silence. The weapon, the Empire's crowning terror, had been turned into a nursery joke. Humanity had not destroyed it, they had embarrassed it. On the Resolute, Kepler listened to the broadcasts without triumph. He only stirred his coffee, calm as ever. "They are beginning to understand humiliation," he murmured. "Fear follows soon after." And when fear matures, he let the sentence fade. His officers understood the rest. Empire propaganda screamed denial, claiming sabotage by traitors. But their soldiers knew better. The whispers grew. Humans do not fight fair. Humans do not fight loud. They fight with lullabies and smiles. And by the time you realize it's war, you are already surrounded. The Emperor, seething, summoned his council. His voice thundered, echoing off marble and steel. "They are primitives. How can they unravel us with toys and songs?" An older general bowed his head. "Because, Majesty, they are not fighting for conquest. They are fighting for their children." The Emperor roared for silence. "Then we will break their children first." Those words carried across the chamber like poison. Even his advisors shuddered, for they remembered the whispered rule, the one never written but always honored. Do not touch the human children. But arrogance deafens the wise. The Emperor ordered deeper strikes. Camps, schools, shelters. He demanded the breaking of humanity's spirit. He did not notice how tightly the noose had already cinched around his Empire's throat. That night, Kepler attended another negotiation. The Empire's envoys arrived sneering, boasting of their Emperor's decree. Kepler listened with the patience of a priest. When they finished, he reached into his bag and set a simple backpack on the table. It was small, worn at the edges, decorated with stickers of stars and rockets. Slowly he unzipped it. Inside lay a children's lunchbox. Bright red, cartoon astronauts on the lid. Kepler clicked it open. The Empire's envoys leaned forward, scorn still etched on their faces, until they saw the faint red light pulsing within. A compact device, humming with restrained power. Kepler smiled politely, folding his hands. "Rule number 1, don't touch the kids." His voice was velvet, but beneath it was steel. "Rule number 2, always check the lunchbox." The envoys froze. The device beeped once. Then Kepler closed the lid and tucked it away as casually as a father packing sandwiches. He stood, buttoned his coat, and offered a nod. "Thank you for your time, gentlemen." The room remained paralyzed as he left, the faint echo of his boots trailing behind like a gavel of judgment. By dawn, the Empire's fleet commanders reported new disappearances. Stations abandoned, weapons gone, comm relays hacked. And everywhere, the same calling cards, paper cranes, teddy bears, drawings of smiling children. What had begun as rumor was now religion. Humans were not merely fighting, they were haunting. In the neutral markets, demand for human goods surged. Not for weapons, but for trinkets, lunchboxes, toys, storybooks. Species that once mocked humans now kept these items as talismans, fearful of what defiance might bring. Merchants joked about paying in cookies rather than credits, but no one laughed too loudly. On the Resolute, Kepler stood alone at the viewport, the stars sprawling like a million watchful eyes. He spoke softly, as though to those distant points of light. We gave them a chance. We taught with patience. But some lessons must be burned into memory. His aide approached hesitantly. "Sir, what happens now?" Kepler's reflection in the glass smiled faintly. Now they start to realize the war has already ended. They just haven't admitted it yet." Far across the galaxy, in the Emperor's throne hall, a courier burst in with trembling hands. "Majesty, the humans, they've breached our inner archives. Every weapon, every fleet coordinate, every secret deployment exposed." The Emperor's roar shook the hall. Impossible. Yet the evidence lay undeniable. Their enemies already knew everything. Humanity had not merely defended, they had mapped the Empire's veins, prepared to cut them all at once. The Emperor slumped back, bow rising in his throat. For the first time, he felt the true weight of the whispered rule. It was not superstition. It was survival advice. And he had ignored it. Kepler, far away, closed the worn backpack once more, the lunchbox secured within. His officers watched him with reverence and dread. He lifted his coffee, inhaled the steam, and said quietly, "We've been patient long enough." The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. In the war chamber, his generals trembled. Holomaps bloomed across the room, bleeding red as system after system blinked into silence. Armies were not dying in glorious battle. They were evaporating. Supplies vanished. Outposts surrendered before a shot was fired. Entire garrisons awoke to find every weapon dismantled, every ship disabled, every commander exposed. And always, the same calling cards, paper cranes, teddy bears, chalk drawings of smiling children standing taller than armies. The Emperor snarled. "Explain this." No one could. Not fully. One general mumbled about infiltration, another about traitors. But an old strategist, scarred and bent, finally spoke aloud the words no one wanted to hear. "Majesty, it is not war. It is a lesson." The Emperor roared until his throat tore. "Lessons are for students. We are rulers." And yet the words clung. Far across the stars, aboard the Resolute, Colonel Kepler sat at his desk. The photo of his children lay before him again, creased from years of folding and unfolding. He touched their faces with a finger, then set it aside and stood. His officers waited in silence, their nerves taut. The room glowed with maps, every imperial stronghold marked not in red, but already muted gray. Kepler's voice was calm, steady, unhurried. "The time for whispers is over. They've shown their hand. Now we show ours." A young officer swallowed. "Sir, do we unleash everything?" Kepler sipped his coffee. The steam curled like smoke from a battlefield. "No. We unleash only what they need to see. The rest will remain in their nightmares." His command was simple, spoken like a father telling his children to put toys away. Yet within hours, the galaxy shook. The humans struck everywhere at once. Not fleets hurling themselves into grand clashes, but precision like a surgeon's scalpel. Communications collapsed. Vaults burst open. Financial markets shredded as hidden accounts were emptied and rerouted to starving colonies. Imperial governors woke to find their crimes broadcast to every world they ruled, their faces plastered on screens beside the bruised face of a 6-year-old boy from Pelor Colony. Entire planets turned against the Empire not from loyalty to humanity, but from shame. Merchants refused orders. Soldiers deserted. Citizens filled streets, chanting a phrase they barely understood. "Do not touch the children." On Caliph Prime, alien counselors watched the chaos unfold. The old scholar with cracked scales bowed his head. The lesson has ripened. Humanity has unleashed itself. Meanwhile, on the shattered frontiers, human operatives moved like storms. They did not wear uniforms, but the plain clothes of parents, teachers, guardians. They fought with precision, dismantling entire battalions without raising voices. One squad infiltrated a fortress and left behind not corpses but classrooms, desks neatly arranged where officers once plotted. books stacked where weapons had lain. The Empire mocked it as theater, until the fortress detonated from within, triggered by the simple opening of a child's storybook. Kepler walked among his troops, calm as ever, his tin of cookies in hand. He handed them out before missions. Not rations, not stimulants, cookies. A reminder, he said, of why they fought. Soldiers took them with reverence, sometimes eating, sometimes saving them in pockets like relics. One Marine scrawled on his helmet in chalk, "Dad said no." Others copied the phrase, until helmets across dozens of units bore the same words. The Emperor, desperate, turned to his ultimate weapon, himself. He donned ceremonial armor, crimson and gold, and declared he would confront the humans personally. His propaganda spread across the capital. "I will break the monsters. I will show the galaxy their fear." Yet when Kepler walked into the throne hall, he did not look monstrous. He looked calm. He wore no gilded cape, no glowing armor. Just his uniform, pressed and neat, coffee mug in hand. He walked as though into a meeting room, as though this hall of marble and fire was nothing more than another council chamber to be endured. The Emperor bellowed, "You dare come here alone?" Kepler smiled faintly. "Alone? No, never alone. You see, you broke the rule. And when you break that rule, you invite all of us. Parents, teachers, soldiers, farmers, everyone. I'm just the messenger." The Emperor raised his blade, its edge humming with power. "I am eternal. Empires are eternal." Kepler set his mug down carefully on the steps of the throne. His eyes were cool steel. Eternal until nap time. The battle was not a duel of equals. The Emperor lunged, roaring, but the blade sparked against shields unseen. Humans had already infiltrated his palace systems, disabling his weapons as they had disabled fleets. Guards turned on one another, confused by whispers in their comms, voices of children asking simple questions. "Why are you hurting us? Why are you so mean?" The Emperor fell to his knees, his armor hissing as systems shut down one by one. Kepler approached slowly, every footstep an unspoken verdict. He crouched, met the Emperor's terrified eyes, and spoke softly. "You mistook love for weakness. That was your last mistake." The Emperor tried to curse him, but his voice cracked into a sob. Kepler rose, turned away, and lifted the mug once more. Behind him, the throne room's power grid collapsed. Lights flickered, marble cracked, banners burned. The Emperor's final scream was swallowed by silence. Outside, the galaxy shifted. Fleets surrendered without orders. Worlds declared independence. The Empire crumbled not through endless war, but through humiliation, shame, and terror at a foe who had never needed to shout. When the news spread, alien markets erupted with relief and dread. Children on distant worlds played at being human soldiers, chalking teddy bears onto walls. Parents of every species held their offspring closer, whispering thanks to gods they had abandoned, afraid to imagine what it meant that humanity had done this all in the name of children. On the Resolute, silence hung over the bridge. Officers waited, the weight of victory pressing on their chests. Kepler stood at the viewport, watching as imperial banners fell from towers across the capital. He spoke softly, his words more for himself than his crew. "They thought us weak because we cared. They thought love was soft. But love is the sharpest blade of all." The officers said nothing. There was nothing to add. Kepler pulled the photograph of his children from his pocket one final time. He traced their faces, then set it gently beside his empty mug. His reflection in the glass looked tired but unbroken, like a man who had endured more wars than he ever wanted, yet carried every scar with quiet purpose. The comm chimed. A voice reported, "Sir, the Empire has fallen. The galaxy is asking what comes next." Kepler inhaled, slow and steady. His answer was simple. What comes next is memory. They will remember the rule. They will whisper it louder than ever. And if they forget, he let the words fade, his eyes fixed on the horizon where starlight bled into shadow. Then he turned, his voice quiet but unyielding. "If they forget, we remind them." Across the galaxy, silence reigned. broken only by faint echoes of lullabies played through static.